How's it going, guys? Today we're going to be watching this video from the good old Sky News about Albanese government on the housing crisis. And
I don't know about you, but this housing crisis, it's so bad that, well, my kids feel just about locked out of the housing market. I don't know if they'll thank me for saying that. I'm sure we're going to have to help them out. I mean, just look at the news today. Homes have never been so hard to buy. In Sydney, you now need 13 times the average wage to buy a house. 13 times. 50 years ago, you needed just over 4 times the average income. I mean, what on earth? This is insane. Well, you take this measure of how hard it's become. It now takes half of a median income.
That's pretty disgusting of a stat, right? Like half a median income just to afford the mortgage repayments. So how do they expect, the average person that's, under the age of 40 that hasn't owned a house yet to buy one? I know you got to get it on the ladder, and maybe that's the trick. You got to buy like a cheaper house, and let the market compound it for a little while. But even at that time, the house that you really want has also gone up. So yeah, your deposit will go up a little bit once you sell the house. When you take out your selling costs, you're not really that much further ahead after let's say you buy a bit of a shitter house. Your maintenance costs on that house would be quite a bit. So to be able to afford something that's 13 times the average income, that's pretty ridiculous. And it's stupid to even suggest that people should be able to afford that, right? So what's the solution? The government doesn't want to lower house prices, so the only solution they're offering is that they let wages catch up. But wages aren't going to catch up for, I think another video I watched was 70 years odd. So house prices have to come down in some significant way. However, I'm currently, maybe within the next year looking at buying a house, depending on how my situation goes within the next 6 months, because I've just moved, new job and whatever. So within the next year looking to buy a house. But if I buy a house and then it's at 10, 20%, cut in housing prices, how the heck am I going to feel about that? That's going to be crazy. I've just lost my deposit plus a bit more because the housing market decided to correct after I bought in. So I can see why the government doesn't want to drop housing prices. But man, then something needs to happen, and it's going to hurt and piss off someone either way it happens, right? So it's a hard choice.
To pay the mortgage of a medium-priced home. At least that was the end of last year. I mean, that's a scandal. And here's the thing, you see. This Albanese government has just put out a report that admits the government's insane immigration intake, 1 million people in 2 years, hundreds of thousands a year still coming, is making this worse. Doesn't say it as directly as I just did to you, but it's in there. You can see it from a graphic. Now, I know, of course, this argument is obvious. Of course, more people you bring in, the harder it is to find houses for everyone. But the government has never admitted it. So, no, it's a supply issue. It's a supply issue, not a demand issue, whatever the hell that means. But anyway, now the government's National Housing Supply and Affordability Council has put out this report, the State of the Housing System. It's an annual report. And it spills the beans in this graphic of future demand for houses, showing that if immigration was 15% lower than is predicted, and that is the bottom line, 15% lower than the government wants, then we will have an extra 40,000 or so homes over the next 4 years available to Australians. And 40,000 more homes?
40,000 more homes would definitely curve down that demand pressure that we're seeing at the moment, right? Will it do enough? Probably not. You're probably going to, you'd assume house prices are just going to keep going up. Realistically, you need to see supply increase and that demand lower. There needs to be less people looking for a house, but that's never going to happen because then the economy crashes and then shit goes and hits the fan. So I think it's pretty pointless in complaining about it, to be honest. At the moment, it's a crap situation. It's what it has become. Will housing prices become more unaffordable? It's hard to believe that it could possibly, happen. So I think the reality of buying a house for it to then, increase in value might be a bit more of a fantasy, but who knows? But honestly, at the end of the day, you got to work fucking your ass off, save up a huge deposit, buy a house, work even harder to pay down that mortgage in less than 30 years. So you're not paying double the price of the house. And then you might be happy. or you just move to another country. I don't know. That's
That's
getting
got to help,
becoming
doesn't
an
it?
option.
Joining me is the man who spotted this detail, passed it on to me, is Leith Van Onselen, co-founder of Macro Business and a former Federal Treasury official. Leith, thank you so much for your time and thanks for passing it on. That is extraordinary, that revelation in that one graphic, and the government's never come out and said, oh yes, there is a link between immigration and the housing crisis. In your mind, what does this graphic prove?
Yeah, Andrew, this is absolutely scandalous. So Australia's cumulative housing shortage is already estimated by AMP chief economist Shane Olver to be around 200,000 to 300,000 homes. Now, the government's own housing affordability body, the National Housing Supply and Affordability Council, has warned that Australia's housing shortage and rental crisis are going to continue to worsen over the next 5 years as immigration demand continues to exceed housing supply. And what they forecast is that Labor's going to miss its housing target, it's 1.2 million homes over 5 years, by about 262,000 dwellings. So that's about 22%. And they forecast that new housing supply is going to remain below population demand, i.e. immigration, for the entire 5-year period. And we're going to be 79,000 short over the next 5 years. So that's 79,000 on top of the already undersupply of about 200,000 plus. So as a result, they warn that we're going to have more homelessness, more overcrowding, etc. And as you point out at the top, Andrew, if we simply cut population growth by 15%, this is according to their own estimates, instead of having 79,000 shortage of homes, we'd actually have a surplus over the next 5 years of 40,000. And what this tells you in black and white is that the primary solution to Australia's housing crisis is to cut immigration, and that the housing situation will improve in Australia if we cut immigration. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, but the government doesn't want to even go there. And I'll ask you why in a second. It's instead saying, said in the election, oh, no, we got plans to fix all this to help first home buyers buy their home. They're going to allow them to have their loans. They're going to guarantee their loans. The government is now going to guarantee their loans so that they can buy a home with just a 5% deposit. 5% deposit. So is that going to help?
Sure, it'll help people get into the market, but at the end of the day, it could actually increase the housing prices. And furthermore, it's crazy. When I said house prices maybe drop 20%, imagine if you only put 5% down. You just lost 15%. You're negative 15% on that house then. You owe 15% more than what the house is valued at. With 5% deposit, you're playing with fire. And not only that, but then you have a higher mortgage, which means your repayments will be higher, which means serviceability will be harder to achieve. It's just it's a way in, yes, but is it the right way of doing things? Probably not.
No, it's not. So Labor's 5% deposit scheme for first home buyers is simply going to increase borrowing capacity. It's going to suck more, potentially subprime borrowers into the housing market, and it's going to lift overall demand and prices. So what we're going to
it's just going to create a bigger and bigger bubble, and that's all the government's trying to do: create this bubble as big as they can.
end up after this, say 5 years, Andrew, is going to end up with more expensive housing than ever and larger mortgages, because the people who bought those homes are going to have smaller deposits to begin with. So we're just going to end up with higher prices and more household debt without solving the underlying problem, is that we're bringing in way more people than we can ever supply homes for.
Because that is the basic issue, isn't it? Too many people chasing too few homes. We're not building them fast enough. And whether you throw money to help people buy more, there's only that many homes. And there's still all these people. And that is the issue. Now, why doesn't it cut immigration?
Well, that's definitely a question for the federal government. They maintain high immigration for two main reasons. A, it's great for the federal budget, because if you bring a whole bunch of people, they raise more income taxes and corporations taxes, but the cost of that population growth is deferred onto the broader population, onto state governments, etc., which is why states like Victoria are drowning in debt. They also run a high immigration policy because big business wants it, big property wants it, and the universities love it, and migration agents. There's a whole industry around this, Andrew. But unfortunately, for us, the ordinary Australians and the regular punters, it makes our lives more difficult. We have more traffic congestion. We've got poorer quality housing that becomes more expensive. We have crush-loaded infrastructure and services left, right, and centre, and ultimately the economy ends up with lower productivity.
Yeah, and I actually think...
Yeah, I'm not sure about that whole economy will end up with lower productivity, but I'm definitely, I'm pretty sure I heard the stat that individual productivity actually, on an individual basis, is lower. For some reason, whether it's lower skilled people coming into the country or whatever, more students or whatever. So per GDP capita is lower, and wealth per person becomes lower as there are more people, and the wealth is not growing at a way, they're not related, they're not related. That more people coming in grows the economy at the exact same rate. The economy grows, but not as much as what it would grow if we were actually focusing on the country instead of just bringing people in, right?
Allowing people to buy their first homes early is actually a social good, because it teaches you responsibility, makes you feel part of the community, it settles young men down. I just think it's such a social good. And look what we are doing to the young. It is just disgusting. It's disgraceful. Leith Van Onselen, thank you so much. And I should tell people...
Yeah, I'm not sure if buying your own house is, such a social good, but it is a good I guess you could say that because like it's good for building stability around yourself. Like the only like once you buy a house, in 10, 20 years, the mortgage repayment remains the same, right? However, your income will increase. So eventually you'll deflate your mortgage repayment as your income hopefully increases over the years. So I guess that stability is good, and overall you net become more wealthy as you have a house. And the retirement statistics of way you're more happy and more stable in a retirement part of your life if you own your house. So there's definitely pros to owning a house, and I guess the earlier you get it bought, the quicker you get it paid off, the less stress you have later on in life, which is at the end of the day what we want. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Make sure to subscribe, guys. I've got like 90% of you, or 99.9% of you guys aren't subscribed. So make sure to subscribe and comment down below what you think of the housing market. Are you in it? Are you out of it? Are you ever going to be in it? Let me know. Later.